The authority of this creation is divine. So if we know that it's divine, then that means it has rules in that divinity.
That's it. Welcome to the God Factor. I am your host, Dr. R Springett. And today I have a great guest in the house. But before we get to him, we're going to talk a little bit of stuff that means something to you and to me. Today we're going to be talking about health. And sometimes people misguide how it works. But once you get sick, you got to start thinking, am I going to get better? And if things don't look up, you might be thinking, hey, what happens if I get worse? Am I going to live or am I going to die? After that, you got to start thinking, if I get any worse than this, if I die, am I going to heaven or am I going to hell? Well, my guest today is going to join us and he's going to help us with the first part about getting better. He's none other than Dr. Gunseek.
Welcome, everybody, to The God Factor. Here is your host, Dr. R Springett.
I'm happy to have you here because there are many questions that needs to be answered, not only by secular, but by the Christian.
Right.
And Christians need to know more than what we think we do.
Right.
As a doctor, when we go to the doctors, they give us a pile of medicine.
Right.
Sometimes you only go for one thing.
Right.
But you leave with 7 jars.
Exactly.
I'm trying to find out why it's that.
Okay, so we first of all have to kind of like open it up and look at what actually is the Western medical model system. So, and that's contrary to what I believe is more of a spiritually aligned system, and that is the Western medical model looks at symptoms, makes the person to blame, looks at your genetics, and then gives you a set of drugs to somehow encourage whatever you have in order toward a reduction of that symptomology. In the God-directed healing, and I'm not saying that doesn't have a place in the Western model, but in the God-directed healing, you are looking at outside choices. You are looking at the body working together to heal itself, and you're not to blame. And the important thing is you're now reducing the cause. So I just want to break that down because this is very huge. In one system, you're looking at, let's reduce the symptoms. Let's make drugs for that system to be reduced. And then let's have you on that milking machine for years to come, if necessary. The other one is, let's get to the cause. Let's eliminate the cause. No need for drugs. You're back to normalcy.
Well, it sounds easy to us, but very few doctors talk about anything to do with just the cause.
Right. And it's not their fault. The curriculum in school actually has it so that the amount of time they spend in total on studies for nutrition is 5 hours. Now, I want to make that really clear.
No.
Not 5 hours a day, 5 hours for years. In order for me to do what I do, I had to do several thousand hours to make the connection between health, nutrition, the way the body operates. So it's that they're smart guys, they know well. I have lots of friends who are docs, but the thing is, they're just not classically trained in natural healing, and that's the system I talk about.
Got it.
Now, the reason why I want to digress about this and say, why did I bring God into it immediately? Well, let's take scripture, Psalm 139:13. You created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb.
That's right.
So right off the bat, that creates a bulb going off in your head. The authority of this creation is divine. So if we know that it's divine, then that means it has rules in that divinity.
That's it.
And if we break those rules, in other words, if things are operated in our body that are contrary to the design, i.e. a divine design, things happen, and that result is disease.
So if we say disease, we are talking about massive. We're talking about a mass amount of different things that can happen to one person.
Right.
And some people have diabetes. Some people have anoditis. And some people have just clonitis.
Right.
There's all these things that one person can have.
Right.
Would that be because of one thing breaking down, causing all those other things? Or could it be because of the treatment that they're receiving is causing these other things?
Okay, so first of all, one thing we have to make very, very clear is people like fingerprints. They're extremely unique. So one person's ceiling is another person's floor. So the normal, it's called the allopathic model, basically treats a one-size-fits-all. In more of an integrative medicine, we look at every person as individual. So for example, I had a fellow once come into the clinic and he said to me something which I didn't believe right off the bat. He said, if I have 1 ounce of milk, my belt will go up 2 notches within 5 minutes. So it sounds ridiculous. And I said, okay, I'm going to bring you a glass of milk and I'm going to make sure that you take 2 ounces and I'll wait 5 minutes. We did. And his stomach literally expanded. Now my background is more Northern Europe. I can have a gallon of milk. Not saying that I do that, but
right.
I can easily with no contraindication whatsoever. So just the fact that people are wildly individual,
That's right.
and if you give them, you give them a certain drug, you now have to be very careful about titrating that drug accordingly. Look at the Bruce Lee effect. He died simply because of an allergic response to aspirin.
So it's just really no one size fits all in the medical
It can't
field.
be. It can't be. Not to get to the root. It's actually impossible to get to the root with one size fits all mentality.
Okay. And that's what we face it.
We're facing it, but we should ask ourselves in reverse engineering, why does that system exist? Because it's fast, because it's a phenomenal business model,
Okay.
and because the drug companies do benefit. Now, they have a purpose, but they benefit from that model.
Let me interject there. So you say it's like a food chain. It's like McDonald's. So you're looking at me and I look like Kentucky right now to the doctor when I go in.
Right.
How can I get this guy out of here and without going through all of the questions? If you ever notice, I noticed this. So from my experience, I can say this. I go to the doctor and I say, I'm not feeling well. He said, what's going on? And I said, I feel a little dizzy. I feel a little bit lucid in my body. I don't feel like I normally feel.
Right.
He said, well, how do you know? I said, because I know my body.
Right.
He says, okay, any headaches? No. Sleeping? Yeah, but when I get up, I don't feel good. He writes me a prescription in the next few minutes of what I should take.
Right.
He didn't touch me, he just checked. He says, your pressure, let me check your pressure. And he didn't bore my skin, he didn't take blood, nothing. He just writes me something.
Right.
How is that like comforting a person who is not like me? Because I'm very, very meticulous and particular with what I take.
Right.
So as soon as they write me something, I'm asking myself, like, you can just write somebody something from a couple of questions.
Right. Okay, so the answer lies in part to the duration of the meeting. In order to go, well, actually Harvard did a study, the average visit to the doctor is 7 minutes and 22 seconds. For me to deal with anybody, its average is 2 hours. So as a business model, I don't have people going in and out of there like McDonald's, but I get right to the heart of the matter of where they are, why they got that way, and what they need to do in order to improve as a person with that pathology.
All right, so that brings me to a couple questions that we are going to want to throw at you today.
Okay, sure.
And I'm thinking, like, in the different cultures and the ethnicities, there are different things that manifest that we call disease.
Right.
And some people are in one culture never ever gets cancer. That is one of the biggest topics in the world.
Right.
And I looked at a documentary. I'm not sure, but I've seen you on documentaries when I searched to my TV.
Right.
In Australia, I'm searching, and there you are doing a documentary with someone about health and what they should be using, what they should not be doing.
Right.
But there's a section in Italy. They said that place, there's never been one person in that whole area that has ever been diagnosed with cancer.
Right.
Why is that?
Okay, so first of all, that's a multi-layered question. There are certain spots within the world globally, due to the dynamic of that location, the dietary aspects, the lifestyle aspect is very ideal for the lack of expression of carcinogenic display. Having said that, though,
What is carcinogenic display?
basically for you to promote cancer in your body. So all of us here right now in the audience, right now, in this moment of time, are producing mutagenic or cancer cells now.
I rebuke that, or I rebuke it.
But we're squelching them through our natural defense mechanism, which God himself instilled in our body. So they get handled right on the spot through the first and second and third line of defense that we have. Now, that being said, there is a perfect storm lifestyle that people are leading today that some of these indigenous areas or geographically unique areas don't live. And I've noticed over a period of time, the people who come to the clinic for cancer, they've never met each other, and they all sound like they've said they've read the same book and they do the same things. And I'll mention to you right off the bat, this doesn't mean you will get cancer, but this means you will increase the likelihood of your cancer dramatically. Number one,
Yes.
they're low hydrators. They just don't like to drink water. They have 1,000 reasons why, but the point is they just don't like to drink water. Number 2, they have a sweet tooth, and they don't want to hear about anything stopping that. Number 3, this is an oddball point, they hold on to grudges. They don't let anger go. And it's interesting because the beauty of Scripture shows the duality of the application of God's law. It's not only that you forgive someone and, of course, that emotional burden is left,
right,
but also the impact on your health. You're also released.
That's it.
So holding grudges, I've been at people's deathbeds where, I have a lot of time to talk to them, the family's there sometimes, and it's a big, heavy, intense discussion. And one of the things I saw again and again was I would ask certain questions, and then suddenly when it got to an emotional status of something, the person would flare up and get extremely angry and livid at someone who betrayed them. Like they would mention this point as though it happened a
They've been
minute ago.
holding it. They've been holding
it. And I said, well, how long ago did this happen?
Yeah.
And they would say like, oh, this is 15 years ago. And you've been harboring that for 15 years? Well, you don't understand what I went through.
Yeah.
And I went, no, that's not what I'm promoting. I'm not promoting the hold.
Yeah.
So the emotional aspect is really big. Then also lack of antioxidants. They don't like vegetables. They don't like fruits. They have them now and then, but they do it almost with eyes rolling. That's a really big one. And then, of course, another large one is there is a little bit of a genetic component, but it's not as big as people think. So if you have lifestyle choices, a good way to look at it is your genetics is the gun,
Yes.
but your environment pulls the trigger.
Got it. Nice. Very, very nice. Okay, I see some people in the audience are looking at us like, hey, I didn't know all of that stuff. So the whole objective here is that don't pull the trigger. Drink your water. Eat your veggies.
Yeah.
And what was the next thing that we needed to do?
Well, cool your jets on the sugar.
And cool your jets under sugar. And one more thing, don't hold grudges.
Yeah.
Release your grudges.
Yeah.
Now, like right now, like now, fate, release them.
Yeah.
All right,
Absolutely.
so we're going to get some more stuff out of this. And 1 and 2, we'll be back with you.